So, welcome back to Lightwave Digital, and this scene will show you in what way you can build fluids with flow, CUDA-based flow, if you want that fluid stick on an object. So normally, if you build a setup with flow CUDA with the default setups and you run something, then that would be happen. So the fluid comes in contact with a kinematic object, and the kinematic object then is a collision object, but the fluid would purl up from that, or purl down from that object. And you have then that gum-like fluid, that thick fluid. It's not water, it's more thick fluid. But you see that the fluid not stick on that kinematic collision object. So in what way it works now? So the simple trick is to use here the adhesion, and for example we take a number from 10, so that's high. Okay, so you have not so much high viscosity, but you have a high adhesion. I don't know what it is in English, or in what way I have to speak it out. Adhesion in German. So anyway, so if we start now the simulation new, you would see that now that object, that kinematic object, that what comes in contact with that fluid would hold the particles, and the older the particle is, the stronger holds that, So in that way you can build something like that, So that's what I also show with my beard example, So that fluid stick on your kinematic object, So in that way you can build something like that, And in the end, if you want to bake it out, you build your fluid output folder, and then you have here some filters. So in the moment here all filters are on, and if you bake it, then you can bake it, And in that case you would see, if you have a fast SSD or NVMe disk, then it's very fast, that baking process. So he write now for every frame an object, that Lightwave object sequence, and write it out, and you can then see, if you write it out, in what way the fluids with your filters look like, if you bake it out. So it need a while, it's a huge amount of particles, but you can see then in your OpenGL preview in what way it looks then. And if you like it, then you can leave it, and then you have it as sequence and can work with that. Or you like it not, then you stop that baking process. So the baking process show you a little bit more exact what's happened as a preview, And then you have it. And the best is the fluid output folder would be seen from FlowCuda, so that what you do, it's directly store it in your scene. If you, for example, now stop here the baking process, and it jumps then to frame 0, and if you know scrub in the timeline, you see that that mesh is directly as Lightwave object sequence stored internal in Lightwave Flow, so you can now render it directly, So you have nothing more to do as to save it or bake it as sequence, and then you can put it out, and that way it works. And if you have a graphic card with much CUDA cores, then you would bake it really fast, and also really high amounts of particles, So that's a little bit the trick behind that kind of scenes. And the other thing is in what particle size you do that, So if you make the particle size more little, then it need longer to bake it out, and it need also longer to calculate that. And the simple reason is, for example, let us take a particle size from 0, 1, and also a smaller collision distance, and you make now preview. Now he need much more time and much more particle to do that. Yeah, and you see also that the particle source would be smaller, and the reason is that the particle now is smaller. Yeah. So that means if you want now, okay, that's my gun is too small, so I have more smaller particles, and you give that gun a bigger size, yeah, for example. So you need now much more particle, but you see that it now spread out much more from them, yeah. And you have now a good looking fluid, yeah, for example, if you do that, and the fluid would in the same time, if you come in contact with a collision object or a kinematic object, would then stick on that. Yeah, and that's very interesting for some things you want to do. Yeah, or also if you now give him more speed, so that the particles came out with more speed. Yeah, if you run it, then you will see that it then put out much more particle per second, and that's your maximum, and you have then things like that. Yeah, so you can play endless with that, and I don't know what the people like and what you want, but Flow is very flexible for things like that. Yeah, so if you want, you can bake it then, and then also the baking process, if you have that tiny particle size from 0.01, needs then a longer time. Yeah, and important is to know if your SSD or your NVMe is very fast for writing. Yeah, then your baking process would go faster as if you use older drive, yeah, SATA drive or something like that. Yeah, so it's better to have minimum SSDs or NVMe's to bake it out fast, and you have activate there some write functions so that you can bake out it really fast. So it looks like if you bake it out with a Gaussian filter, and if you do it a while, so the baking is only stop if you say here pause or reset. Yeah, so it bake and bake out, and in some situations, let us show it in that way. You need for that CUDA flow tool a graphic card with much VRAM, yeah. So I have a card with 24 gigabyte VRAM, and you see now here, if you bake it out with so much particle, that you then have very quickly some gigabytes of VRAM in your use it in your graphic card, yeah. So if you have, for example, only a little NVIDIA card with 6 GB VRAM or 8 or so, then you can not build simulations that are very long. Yeah, so it's better you have a graphic card with minimum 12 gigabyte VRAM or 24 gigabyte VRAM. Or in other words, more VRAM is better. Yeah. So and in that way it works. Yeah. So that kind of scenes is good to study what possibilities you have with Lightwave Flow. Yeah. So I have nothing more to say about that. So load that scene, and then if you start here the run and Lightwave say, hey, something is not happening, I have not enough particles, then go to preferences and pick up here a 0 more in the end here. That's all what you have to do, and then it works. Yeah. So and with that scenes you can test and can imagine in what way Flow with CUDA works, and what you can do there. Yeah, in that case, that fluid can stick on the kinematic object. If you want not that it not stick, then set the adhesion in German to 0, and then you have effect that it not stick, yeah, on the body. Then the most from them will go. Yeah. So we can study with that simple kind of with that simple scenes some kinds of effects you can build with that with CUDA Flow. Yeah. So, and if you give him more from them and more, so if you make all that very high, yeah, also here for example the viscosity, make it 200 and this to 0.3, and you take then a look, you will see that you can build the wildest things. Yeah. So it's only a question of that what you want to see in the end if you bake it out. Yeah. And to test what's your baking out final, it's yeah. If some from your parameters you mean it's interesting to see it looks if you bake it out, then bake it out and take a look what it do. Yeah. And in what way the mesh will build from flow. Yeah. For that case. Yeah. So I hope you have fun a little bit with that scene and can play a little bit with that. And yeah, see you later. Bye.